Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Rocky Top Insider post-game show following Tennessee's 7-5 win over Texas. Tennessee Baseballs, that is, of course, in Hoover. SEC Tournament Round 3. Tennessee moves on to the semifinals with a thrilling win in extras. Lots of storylines, and my goodness, this was some vintage Tennessee baseball stuff on Thursday at the Hoover Met as the Vols find a way behind heroics from Brandon Arvitson, Gavin Keelan. We'll get into it all. Ryan was boots on the ground in Hoover as he's been all week long. Ryan, I guess just what was your biggest takeaway from such a thrilling win from Tennessee to keep its run here in Hoover alive?
Yeah, I think it's Brandon Arvitson. I mean, look, we were texting, and I don't even know when that was. The middle, late part of the game when Tennessee was, I guess it was 4-4 at that point, or maybe Tennessee was trailing. And, you've been probably more positive on this team's outlook long term than I have, at least over the last couple of weeks. And I was saying at that point, having no idea whether Tennessee was going to win the game or not, my expectation kind of being that they were going to still lose the game, was that, yeah, I'm starting to kind of see the path for this team. I'm starting to feel a lot more optimistic about this team making a run in the NCAA tournament. And I mean, Arvitson, the bullpen as a whole, but Arvitson today, certainly a big part of that. I mean, he was just absolutely dominant. After another lesser Liam Doyle outing. It was a shorter Liam Doyle outing. We knew that was kind of going to be the case. He wasn't going to throw too many pitches this week in Hoover before the NCAA tournament next week. But for Liam Doyle to exit the game down 4-0, it kind of felt like Tennessee was pretty much dead. And certainly the offense did some stuff to get him back in the game. But what Brandon Arvitson did in 5 1/3 innings, in those 5 1/3, when he got those 16 outs, I think he allowed just 3 base runners, struck out 9. Obviously gave up back-to-back hits with an error mixed in there in the 10th inning to end his day. But he was just fantastic. And Tennessee doesn't win today without him. Probably more importantly, in the long term, I think he provides a real bright spot for this Tennessee bullpen.
No kidding. I mean, this was a guy who we expected to be a big part of this pitching staff going into the season, was in the conversation to potentially be the day 3 starter,
Yep.
and starts the season as a bullpen guy, had a couple of starts there, a midweek start mixed in, and it just never felt like he had a true outing that would really plant him as a big time bullpen arm for Tennessee all year long. He was just kind of a guy who filled in some gaps here and there, but not someone you look to as, hey, Arvitson's got a, he's ready to roll today behind X. That was never really the case. He was just a guy who filled in the gaps. And you look at the stats, they bear that out. Before today, season high innings pitched for Arvitson was 2 1/3. Season high in pitches thrown was 41. Today, Brandon Arvitson pitched 5 1/3 and threw 85 pitches.
Yep.
Pretty much doubling his previous season highs in just this one game. It's one of the more shocking performances expected to be, a big part of this Tennessee staff, as I said. So it's a guy who's talented, and the performance would indicate that, of course. But as I said, with his role and with what he had been all year long, this is one of the more surprising performances I've seen from a Tennessee baseball player in the past 3 to 4 years that I've been closely following the team.
Yeah, I think it's certainly up there. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I mean, I think you said it specifically, Xander against Georgia early last year. And certainly he turned it on late in the season too. So maybe that South Carolina outing you could throw up there, but you had still seen it. You had seen it against Georgia in a really good Georgia lineup. So no, you're absolutely right. And I think we've talked about it some, but when people have asked me like what's gone sideways with Tennessee's pitching staff this year, one of the main things I've said is just none of these junior college arms have really panned out for him. And I
Yeah.
think they were banking on it. And Arvitson was the number one guy you felt, or at least I felt, and I think Tennessee's coaching staff felt the most confident would pan out. I mean, that was a big time get. Um, and I think certainly this is like a big text in bold with it, but quietly it had 3 really good outings before this too. I mean, one of them, I think he threw 2 1/3 in Game 3 against Arkansas when Tennessee was already down, so it didn't feel overly important. But I went and ran some of the numbers on it post game. In Arvison's first 11 outings against SEC opponents this season, He pitched 10 in the third innings, posted a 7.84 ERA, had a 34.6% strikeout rate and 17% walk rate. Now in his last 4 outings, which were 2 against Arkansas, yesterday against Alabama when he came in and struck out the only batter he faced with, I believe, a runner on third. He's pitched 8 in the third innings, 0 ERA, 45% strikeout rate, and 3% walk rate. Now, I mean, I think that the walk rate's the big number. I mean, he's got 1 walk in those 8 in the thirds. Certainly, the strikeout rate has gone to a whole nother level in these last couple outings, but it's been good all season. The walk rate, I think, was one of his really big issues. It just felt like his command eluded him a lot. And he said today, when talking about it, getting ahead in counts has been the main key for him. First pitch strikes against 18 of the 21 batters he faced today. So his stuff's always been really good. The nasty curveball, the mid 90s fastball, and he's been in the zone a lot more, which I think has just been really, really crucial and kind of allowed his talent to shine through.
I asked you on this week's Rocky Top Insider Diamond Pass podcast to rank Tennessee's bullpen arms in terms of how much confidence you had in them. I only gave you 4 options, the top 4 pitchers of the bullpen. So I thought would be AJ Russell, Loy, Tanner Franklin, Nate Snead. I think it's got to be a 5-man team now with what you consider as the top guys in this bullpen after a performance like this. It feels like Arvitson's a guy you can really trust. And, I mean, I don't know how you can say you can't after a performance like this. This was stuff of legend, Ryan. Like, this is a legendary type performance Brandon Arvitson turned in today. Something that will not soon be forgotten.
Yeah, no, it's definitely one of those things we'll reference years down the road. The Brandon Arvitson outing, probably much like the Dylan Loy outing last year in the SEC tournament championship game against LSU, when I think he threw 4 2/3 of relief, with a lot more offense backing him up in that game than Arvitson had today. So, no, you're right, and I think you just look big picture. AJ Russell continues to throw the ball well. He threw really well against Alabama on Wednesday. Great. Yeah, Wednesday. Dylan Loy. I think it's big that Arvitson would give Tennessee a second left-handed arm that they trust in the bullpen. Gives them some flexibility, more so to play matchups. And then if you can give them more long relief like he did on Saturday against Arkansas or today against Texas, I think that allows you to ask less out of Nate Snead. And I think Nate Snead's his best in short spurts. But Nate Snead was great today. I mean, you throw that too. I mean, just in the trend of Tennessee's bullpen going in the right direction. Scoreless 2 2/3, taking the ball. One bridge out from Dylan Loy in there, but basically taking the ball right after Arvitson. So just some really good themes for the bullpen. I think AJ Russell, you have to really trust right now. Arvitson, you want to continue seeing it, but like you said, it's hard not to trust him after what he's done his last 4 times out. Dylan Loy's Dylan Loy. He might not be asked to get 6 to 9 outs in a game, but you feel like you can trust him in his role. And then, as I've been saying on here for multiple weeks, you just got to keep riding with Nate Snead and hope he gets back to the guy he was last year. And just one outing compared to 4 for Arvitson, but at least a step in the right direction for Snead today. I was looking back at it. I think his best outing since the SEC opener against Florida today was since then. So certainly a really good outing for him. That's probably going to be a little bit overshined by Arvitson.
Yeah, didn't give up a hit. Gave up a couple of walks. Some were pretty good at base. I think one wasn't great from Snead. One of those walks was pretty bad, but struck out 3. The swing and miss stuff was much better than it's been. 41 pitches, so he went longer into games. It felt like Snead had been worse when you keep him out there longer, but that wasn't the case here. 2 2/3. This is something that shouldn't be overshadowed either. Of course, like I said, Arvitson's the story here. It was the MVP of the game, and Keelan had the 2 big swings and extras. But so what Snead did was very important too, because when Arvitson exited the game, things were dicey. So was Snead able to throw that 0 up there in the 11th and then close things out in the 12th? Very, very impressive. Let's move forward and just talk about the offense before we get to one last thing with the big picture. Gavin Keelan, I mentioned it, the homer in extras to originally take the lead. Of course, Texas ends up tying it, but then the 2-run double there in the 12th looked like a homer off the bat. Gavin Keelan certainly thought it was, stared it down for a couple of seconds, maybe could have gotten to third on the play if he had just treated it like a normal base hit. But Gavin Keelan's heroics late, very encouraging. And just this Tennessee offense as a whole, Obviously, not going to be wasn't as dominant as the 20 hit effort against Bama. But when you take into account 2 more hits for Andrew Fisher, he now has 7 straight games with multiple hits. Absurd stretch from him.
Wow.
Inslee with a couple of hits, good to see there. Cannon Peebles providing more consistency there in the bottom of the lineup. Just a lot to like from this Tennessee lineup, considering what we've seen here in these last 5 games.
Certainly so. And I mean, today was probably, from a process standpoint, the worst it is 5 games. But I think you like the fact that they gritted through it and scored some runs, even in a game where they maybe didn't have as many opportunities and started really slow. I mean, they were no hit into the 4th inning at least. Was it the 5th inning?
I think in the 5th inning is when they got their first hit.
Yeah,
Just
Curly
looking
double.
back on this game, the twists and turns, like it's hard to. It's like Liam Doyle pitched in this game. How long ago that seems. And Texas threw Ethan Walker, had barely thrown all year, and he absolutely shoves. It's crazy.
Oh, that was classic baseball.
Yes.
a junk ball, low arm slot lefty who'd rarely pitch, just shutting down a team a day after they had 20 hits. Such a baseball thing.
Right.
But no, I mean, you're right. And I think especially you go at the top, Hunter Inslee, rough weekend at Arkansas, bounced back now 2 straight good performances. Gavin Keelan getting going. Andrew Fisher's Andrew Fisher. He's been really, really consistent. And then certainly I think there's been moments for just about everybody in Tennessee's lineup. Yeah. I don't think Dalton Bargo or Reese Chapman have been great through the first 2 games here, but they've each had moments. I mean, you could argue Bargo had the biggest hit of the day against Alabama. Reese Chapman had a big at bat. I mean, Tennessee taking advantage of a fielding error in the 4th inning, or I guess 5th inning, from Alabama to get 2 runs and kind of start their comeback to get back in the game. Chapman had a good at bat where they scored a run on a sac fly in there. I think it was that inning. Maybe it was an inning later in the 6th. But a little bit of everybody's done a little bit of something well for Tennessee today, and certainly the last 2 days. One thing that, and look, I'm probably slow to this, but one thing I really liked at Tennessee, with what it feels like is kind of starting, at least against right-handed pitching, starting to find a consistent lineup. I really like the Manny in the 9-hole, Gavin in the leadoff spot stack, because Manny's, at least the Tennessee starters, I would say the best sack bunter. At least of the guys that are the best bunter. At least the guys that get asked to bunt. And Gavin being such a good contact bat-to-ball hitter, I think that just stacks up really well for when Tennessee does want to play small ball and try to steal some runs for Manny to be right in front of Gavin and laying down some bunts. And obviously when Gavin hit the 2 RBI double there in the 12th inning, that's what happened right before. So I think that's one of those things, just from a matchup standpoint, works out really well for Tennessee.
Yeah, the offense just feels like it's clicking the most it's been consistently in a long time. We talk about the bullpen, which has been the story of Tennessee's pair of wins in Hoover, just Russell and Arvitson completely shoving, changing this team's ceiling. Right when we move forward here, Tennessee rocketed up the ranks in the RPI. They're a top 10 RPI team, I believe 9th right now. Yep. Kendall Rogers tweeted out that, Tennessee's looking, I don't remember if he said looking good, but in a much better position than they were as far as their hosting chances. We said that Tennessee likely needed to get to Sunday to feel good about their hosting chances. After a win like this against such a good team in Texas and really how it was done, maybe Tennessee's in a better position than we thought to host NCAA regional, given its 2 wins so far in Hoover.
Yeah, I definitely think better chance than we thought. I don't know. Look, I'm not great at this. Obviously, I gave a bad prediction earlier in the week in the podcast. I'd say like 60-40 with a loss on Saturday. I feel like Tennessee does host.
That's what I think.
Over 50%, but definitely not. Definitely not definite.
Right.
What I think you have to feel really good about if you're Tennessee, I think you've definitely moved yourself ahead of Florida and Alabama. I don't know if Tennessee necessarily would have been behind them entering the week, but I think you definitely feel like you're ahead of them now. Outside of the SEC, I think it's been a lot of chalk. I think things have held for TCU in the Big 12. I know Georgia Tech made it to the semifinals in the ACC. I think West Virginia is still alive in the Big 12 too. Not totally sure there. So I think the teams that Tennessee was competing with in the SEC, I definitely think Tennessee is ahead of now. No doubt about it. I think it's more comparing them to some teams from other conferences that I'm less certain of and what could end up being the difference.
For sure. And Tennessee moves on to play the winner of Vanderbilt, Oklahoma. Vanderbilt was up the last time I checked.
Yeah, it's 5-1 when I walked out of the stadium about 15, 20
Yeah.
minutes ago. I guess 20 minutes ago. We've been on here for 15.
Right. So it could be Vols doors on Saturday in the semis with a chance to go to the SEC tournament championship. Would be Tennessee's third appearance in the SEC tournament final in the last, it would be their fourth in the last 5. Yeah.
Yeah, since COVID.
Right. Only year it wouldn't have been. Tennessee was a one and done in 23. So Tennessee keeping the good years coming in Hoover. They just are a postseason team, man. Like Tennessee baseball's the main Twitter account, their caption was "can never count out the postseason balls," something to that effect. And that is so true because it feels like this team just finds it in the postseason. And 2 games in, certainly doing it now, playing the best baseball they played in months.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. And it feels like, again, kind of a culmination. We talked about it. And I don't know, maybe I'm being positive revisionist history for us. So maybe anybody that's listening to us and listened to our podcast earlier in the week can tell me if I'm wrong. I got to imagine, I mean, we were seemingly very positive for talking about a team that had lost their 5th straight series coming off of Arkansas. But, like, it felt like Tennessee played better against Arkansas. It felt like the offense was turning a corner. Certainly there were some pitching things that you didn't like. And certainly they haven't fixed everything overnight. Good defensive performance today, too, I might add. And certainly that was an issue for me against Alabama. So everything's not perfect all of a sudden for this team, but I think you're starting to see more things move in the right direction. And certainly that gives cause for optimism as the postseason moves on.
A legendary performance from Brandon Arvitson pushes Tennessee past Texas. An extra 7-5 is the final. Tennessee will play the winner of Vanderbilt, Oklahoma on Saturday, 1 p.m. Eastern time. Of course, SEC Network has the broadcast there in the SEC tournament semifinals. That's Ryan Schumpert. Follow him at OurShump00. I'm at Jack Foster. You can follow me at Jack Foster Media. And of course, follow Rock Top Insider at Rock Top Insider. But for Ryan, I'm Jack. We'll see you next time.